My sister shined her whole life. On her wedding day, it was my turn. You know what they say about shadows, right? They only exist when there's light. And Sarah was always the light. From the moment she took her first breath, she was stealing all the oxygen in the room. Not literally, of course, though sometimes it felt that way. I was 3 when she was born, 3 years of being the center of my parents' universe, and then, poof. Suddenly, I was just the older one, the responsible one, the one who had to share everything because your sister needs this and be a good example for Sarah. By the time she was 5, Sarah was already performing. Ballet recitals where she'd spin like a little princess while I sat in the audience, clapping until my hands hurt. Mom would lean over and whisper, "Isn't she talented, Emma? You should be so proud of your sister." Proud. That's what they called it. I called it suffocating. Elementary school was worse. While I struggled with math and got B's that barely earned a nod, Sarah was winning spelling bees and getting invited to the gifted program. Teachers would see my last name and light up. "Oh, you're Sarah Mitchell's sister. She's such a bright girl. You must be proud." There was that word again, proud. Middle school brought new tortures. Sarah joined the debate team, the drama club, and somehow still managed to be class president. I tried out for the same drama club and got cast as tree number 3 in the background while she played the lead. At the cast party, parents surrounded her like she was some kind of celebrity. "Sarah, you were magnificent. What a natural performer. You're going places, young lady." I stood by the snack table, eating stale cookies, invisible. High school was my breaking point. Well, one of them. Sarah was homecoming queen, valedictorian candidate, and dating the quarterback. Because of course she was. Meanwhile, I was working part-time at the local diner to save money for college because our parents had already earmarked the college fund for Sarah's bright future. "Emma's more practical," Mom would say. "She'll find her way, but Sarah has real potential. Real potential." Like I was some kind of knockoff version of their real daughter. The night of Sarah's homecoming, I watched her get ready in the bathroom we shared. She was humming while curling her hair, completely oblivious to the fact that I was sitting on my bed, helping her with her chemistry homework. Again. "Emma, you're so good at this stuff," she said, not even looking at me. "I don't know what I'd do without you." What she'd do without me? She'd probably have to actually learn chemistry instead of copying my answers. But I didn't say that. I never said that. I just smiled and said, "You're welcome." College was supposed to be my escape. 4 years away from being Sarah Mitchell's sister. 4 years to be just Emma. But even there, her shadow followed me. She got into Princeton on a full scholarship while I went to state school on student loans. During family calls, it was always "Sarah's doing amazingly at Princeton," and "Did you hear about Sarah's internship at that law firm?" I'd gotten an internship too, at a small accounting firm. But somehow, that never made it into the Christmas newsletters. After college, I thought things might change. I got a decent job, moved to a nice apartment, even started dating someone. For about 6 months, I felt like I might actually exist as my own person. Then Sarah moved back home after law school, and suddenly every family dinner was about her job at the prestigious firm, her new apartment in the city, her perfect boyfriend who was also a lawyer. Mom would beam and say, "Both my girls are doing so well," but her eyes were always on Sarah when she said it. The boyfriend's name was David, perfect David with his perfect job and his perfect family and his perfect plans for a perfect future with perfect Sarah. I met him at a family barbecue. He was polite to me, the way people are polite to service workers, pleasant but forgettable. "So, you're the sister," he said, shaking my hand. "Sarah talks about you all the time." I doubt that, I thought, but I smiled and said, "All good things, I hope." He laughed that polite laugh people do when they're not really listening. "Of course. She says you're the practical one." Practical. There was that word again, the consolation prize word. 6 months later, David proposed. At a restaurant, of course, with a ring that probably cost more than my car. Sarah called me immediately, crying happy tears over the phone. "Emma, I'm engaged. Can you believe it? I'm getting married." I was at work when she called. Sitting in my cubicle, staring at spreadsheets, listening to my little sister's voice bubble over with joy about her perfect engagement to her perfect man for their perfect life. "That's wonderful, Sarah," I said, and I meant it. Part of me meant it. The other part of me wanted to hang up and scream. The wedding planning started immediately. Sarah threw herself into it with the same intensity she'd brought to everything else in her life. Pinterest boards, venue visits, dress fittings. She'd call me every few days with updates I didn't ask for. "The flowers are going to be white roses and baby's breath. Classic, right? And the venue has this gorgeous garden area for photos. You'll love it, Emma." I wouldn't love it. I'd endure it, like I'd endured everything else. Then came the conversation I'd been dreading. "Emma, I need to ask you something," Sarah said. We were having lunch at some trendy cafe she'd chosen. She was glowing, the way engaged women supposedly glow. "I want you to be my maid of honor." I should have been touched. I should have been honored. Instead, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. "Of course," I said, because what else could I say? "Oh, Emma, you're the best." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I know it's a lot of work, but I couldn't imagine anyone else doing it. You're so organized, so dependable. You'll make sure everything runs perfectly." Organized, dependable, perfect little worker bee, making sure the Queen's Day went smoothly. The maid of honor duties were extensive. Planning the bridal shower, organizing the bachelorette party, keeping track of RSVPs, coordinating with vendors. I became Sarah's personal wedding assistant, working nights and weekends to make sure every detail of her special day was perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me. Once again, I was working behind the scenes to make Sarah shine. The bridal shower was a particular form of torture. 30 women gathered in our mother's living room, cooing over Sarah's gifts and gushing about her upcoming wedding. I ran around serving tea and cake, making sure everyone had what they needed. "Emma, you're such a good sister," one of Sarah's college friends said to me. "Sarah's so lucky to have you taking care of everything." Lucky. Like I was some kind of blessing she'd been granted instead of a person with my own life and feelings. The bachelorette party was worse. Sarah wanted to go to Vegas, of course, a weekend of clubs and shows and expensive dinners. She picked the restaurants, the shows, the hotels. I coordinated the flights, managed the budget, and made sure everyone had a good time. While Sarah danced on tables and posed for Instagram photos, I kept track of purses and made sure no one got too drunk. The responsible one. Always the responsible one. 3 weeks before the wedding, Sarah dropped the bomb. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something," she said. We were addressing invitations in her apartment, surrounded by elegant cardstock and calligraphy pens. "What's up?" I asked, not looking up from the envelope I was addressing. "Well, David and I are paying for most of the wedding ourselves, you know, and we're a little over budget. I was wondering, could you maybe help out? Just a little?" I stopped writing. "Help out how? Maybe contribute to the flowers? Or the photography? You know I'd pay you back eventually." Eventually. Right. I looked at my sister, sitting there in her designer jeans and expensive engagement ring, asking me to pay for her wedding while I was still paying off my student loans. "How much?" I asked. "Maybe 3,000? I know it's a lot, but you're so good with money, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing." $3,000, half my savings, for flowers and photos that would capture her perfect day. I said yes, of course, because that's what the practical sister does. She solves problems. She makes things work. She pays for things when the golden child can't quite afford her dreams. That night, I went home to my small apartment and sat on my couch, looking at my bank account. $3,000, just like that. Gone. For someone else's happiness. For the first time in my life, I felt something shift inside me, a small, cold anger that I'd never allowed myself to feel before. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah called me, crying. "Emma, I don't know what to do," she sobbed into the phone. My heart jumped. Had she found out about my plan? Wait, no. I didn't have a plan yet. This was about something else. What's wrong? I asked. It's Dad. He wants to come to the wedding. Our father. The man who'd walked out on us when Sarah was 10 and I was 13. The man who'd missed birthdays and graduations and every important moment of our lives. The man who'd sent sporadic child support checks and called twice a year if we were lucky. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him no. I told him he lost the right to be at my wedding when he left. But Emma, part of me wants him there. Isn't that stupid? It wasn't stupid. It was human. But I didn't say that. What does Mom think? I asked. She's furious. She says if he comes, she won't. And David's family will be there, and they're so perfect, and I don't want drama on my wedding day. Drama. The one thing Sarah had never had to deal with because I'd always been there to handle the difficult stuff. An idea began to form in my mind. A terrible, perfect idea. Don't worry about Dad, I told her. I'll handle it. Really? You'll talk to him? Yeah. I'll make sure he understands that he's not welcome. But that wasn't what I was planning to do at all. I called our father that night. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, but I still had his number. He answered on the third ring. Emma? Is everything okay? Hi, Dad. I'm calling about Sarah's wedding. Oh, she doesn't want me there. Actually, that's not entirely true. She does want you there. She's just scared. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. She's scared of what people will think, I continued. But I think she needs her father at her wedding. Don't you? We talked for an hour. I told him about the wedding, about Sarah's success, about how beautiful she'd become. I painted a picture of the daughter he'd left behind, the one who'd grown up to be everything he'd probably hoped she'd be. I also told him exactly what to say when he got there. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what I was about to do. Part of me felt sick. Part of me felt excited. All of me felt tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being practical. Tired of being proud of someone else's accomplishments, while my own went unnoticed. Tomorrow was Sarah's wedding day. Her perfect day with her perfect dress, and her perfect groom, and her perfect life. But I had a feeling it wasn't going to be quite as perfect as she'd planned. After all, she'd had the spotlight her whole life. Tomorrow, it was finally my turn. Act 2. The action, the cruelty itself. The morning of Sarah's wedding was perfect. Sunny but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that wouldn't mess up anyone's hair. Even the weather was cooperating with her special day. I arrived at the venue early, as any good maid of honor would. The place was gorgeous, just like Sarah had promised. Rolling gardens, elegant architecture, fairy tale perfect, the kind of place that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover, which was appropriate, since Sarah's whole life looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. Emma, thank God you're here, Sarah said when she saw me. She was in the bridal suite, already in her robe, getting her hair done. She looked radiant, of course. When had she ever looked anything else? How are you feeling? I asked, settling into the chair next to her. Nervous, excited, terrified, all at once. She laughed, that musical laugh that had charmed everyone since she was 5 years old. I can't believe I'm getting married today. Neither could I, but probably for different reasons. The morning flew by in a whirlwind of hair and makeup and photos. I played my part perfectly. The supportive sister, making sure Sarah had water, helping her into her dress, holding her flowers while she touched up her lipstick. You look beautiful, I told her, and it was true. She looked like a princess, like a fairy tale bride, like everything she'd always been. Perfect. Thank you, Emma, for everything. I know I've been crazy with all the planning, but having you here, knowing you're taking care of everything, it means the world to me. She hugged me then, careful not to mess up her dress or her makeup. A perfect, delicate hug from a perfect, delicate bride. 30 minutes before the ceremony, I excused myself. Just need to check on a few things, I told Sarah. You're amazing, she said, adjusting her veil in the mirror. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're about to find out, I thought. I found him in the parking lot, just like we'd arranged. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, wearing a suit that was probably 20 years old but still clean and pressed. He looked nervous. "Emma," he said when he saw me, "I wasn't sure you'd really want me to come." "Of course I do," I said, and the scary part was that I almost meant it. "Sarah needs her father today." He smiled, and for a moment I saw a flash of the man I'd remembered from before. Everything fell apart. "How is she? Is she happy?" "She's perfect," I said. "She's always been perfect. Come on, let me show you where to sit." I walked him into the venue, past the other guests who were taking their seats. A few people stared. They recognized him, of course. This was a small town, and his departure had been anything but quiet. I seated him in the third row, right behind David's family, close enough to be noticed, far enough back to avoid immediate confrontation. "When do I—" he started to ask. "You'll know," I said. "Trust me." I went back to the bridal suite to collect Sarah. She was ready, of course. Perfect dress, perfect hair, perfect makeup. She looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. "Ready?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "Ready?" The processional began. I walked down the aisle first, as maid of honor, smiling at the assembled guests. I saw our mother in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I saw David's parents, beaming with pride. I saw our father, sitting quietly in his borrowed suit, hands folded in his lap. None of them knew what was coming. Then Sarah appeared at the back of the aisle, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. She was stunning. Absolutely stunning. Every eye in the place was on her as she walked slowly down the aisle, her smile radiant, her dress trailing behind her like something out of a fairy tale. This was her moment, her perfect moment, her last perfect moment. The ceremony began beautifully. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and the joy of two people finding each other. David and Sarah exchanged vows, their voices strong and clear, their love evident to everyone watching. I stood beside Sarah, holding her bouquet, watching it all unfold. The perfect wedding for the perfect couple, everything exactly as she'd dreamed it would be. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. "If anyone has reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace," the officiant said. It was a formality, of course. No one ever actually stood up at that part. It was just tradition, a relic from a time when marriages were business arrangements and objections might actually matter. But traditions can be useful tools when you know how to use them. I turned slightly and caught my father's eye. He looked confused for a moment, then remembered what I'd told him to do, what I'd convinced him he needed to do. He stood up. The entire room turned to look at him. I heard a sharp intake of breath from our mother. I saw Sarah's face go white. "Actually," he said, his voice carrying clearly in the suddenly silent room, "I do have something to say." This wasn't part of the plan I'd told him about. This was better. This was improvisation. Sarah turned to look at him, her face a mixture of shock and confusion. "Dad," she whispered. "Sarah," he said, stepping into the aisle, "I know I don't have the right to be here. I know I haven't been the father you deserved, but I couldn't let you get married without telling you something." The room was dead silent. Even the birds outside seemed to have stopped singing. "I've watched you from a distance all these years," he continued, walking slowly toward the altar. "I've seen what an amazing woman you've become. Successful, beautiful, everything I hoped you'd be." Sarah's eyes were filling with tears. Good tears, I thought. She was buying it. "But I need you to know something," he said, stopping just a few feet from where she stood. "I need you to know why I really left." And here it came. The moment I'd been orchestrating for weeks. "I left because I couldn't handle the pressure of having a perfect daughter," he said, his voice breaking just slightly. "Because every day I looked at you and knew I was failing you. I knew I wasn't good enough to be your father." Sarah was crying now, makeup starting to run despite the waterproof mascara. The perfect bride was becoming beautifully human. I've regretted it every day since, he continued. But seeing you now, about to marry this man, I realize I was wrong. I wasn't failing you. You didn't need me to be perfect. You just needed me to be there. This was the moment I'd been building toward. Dad, Sarah said, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day of school, or your graduation, or when you got your first job. I'm sorry I missed all of it because I was too much of a coward to face my own inadequacy. The room was mesmerized. Even I had to admit he was doing better than I'd expected, but he wasn't done yet. But I'm here now, he said, and I need to tell you the real truth about why I left. Sarah wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. What truth? This was it, the nuclear option, the thing I'd planted in his head during our long phone conversation, the thing that would destroy her perfect day and finally make me the center of attention. I left because your mother told me you weren't my daughter. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Sarah's face went from confused to shocked to devastated in the span of seconds. What? She told me she'd had an affair, he continued, and I could see him gaining momentum now, getting caught up in the drama of it all. She said you weren't mine, that I was raising another man's child. That's why I left, Sarah. Not because I didn't love you, but because I thought I wasn't really your father. The room erupted. Our mother shot to her feet, her face red with rage. How dare you? She screamed. How dare you lie like that? David's family looked horrified, huddling together like they were under attack. Other guests were whispering frantically, trying to figure out what was happening. But Sarah just stood there, frozen, her bouquet forgotten in her hands. It's not true, our mother was saying, pushing past people to get to the altar. He's lying, Sarah. He's a drunk and a liar, and he's trying to ruin your wedding. Then why didn't you ever tell me he contacted you? Sarah asked quietly, her voice somehow carrying over the chaos. Why didn't you tell me he wanted to come today? Our mother stopped short. What? He called me 3 weeks ago, Sarah continued, her voice getting stronger. He said Emma told him I wanted him here, that you and I had discussed it and decided to invite him. Every eye in the room turned to me. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. This was supposed to be about him, about the bombshell he was dropping. I was supposed to be the supportive sister, the one who'd tried to help but gotten caught in the middle. Instead, I was suddenly the focus of their attention. Emma? Sarah said, her voice deadly quiet. What did you do? I could have lied. I could have claimed ignorance, said I didn't know what she was talking about. I could have played the innocent sister, caught up in someone else's drama. But looking at Sarah's face, at her ruined makeup, and her devastated expression, at the way she was finally not perfect anymore, I smiled. I invited him, I said simply. The room went silent again, but this time the silence was different. This time it was the silence of shock, of people trying to process what they'd just heard. You what? Sarah whispered. I invited him. I called him and told him you wanted him here. I told him exactly what to say and when to say it. I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded, how clear, how in control. Why would you do that? And there it was, the question I'd been waiting my whole life to answer. Because, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the silent room, for once in my life, I wanted to be the one everyone was looking at. Sarah stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. You planned this, she said slowly. You planned to ruin my wedding. I planned to make it memorable, I corrected, and I'd say, mission accomplished. The rest happened quickly. David's parents rushed him away from the altar, muttering about unstable families and dodging a bullet. Our mother was screaming at our father, who was trying to explain that he'd been manipulated. Guests were gathering their things and heading for the exits, whispering among themselves about the drama they'd just witnessed. And Sarah? Sarah just stood there in her perfect dress, watching her perfect day crumble around her. I can't believe you did this, she said finally. Really? You can't believe it? I laughed, and it felt good. It felt like release. You can't believe that your practical, dependable, invisible sister finally got tired of being your supporting cast? I never asked you to be invisible, she said, tears streaming down her face. You didn't have to ask. You just shined so bright that everyone else disappeared. So you destroyed my wedding? You humiliated me in front of everyone I care about? I gave you a taste of what it feels like to be me, I said. What it feels like to have everyone staring at you for all the wrong reasons. What it feels like to be the center of a disaster instead of a celebration. She looked at me for a long moment, her perfect composure finally, completely shattered. I'll never forgive you for this, she said quietly. I don't expect you to, I replied. But at least now you'll remember that I exist. And with that, I walked away. I left my sister standing at the altar in her ruined wedding dress, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect day. For the first time in my life, I was the one walking away while she stood still. For the first time in my life, everyone was talking about me. Act 3. The Impact, Aftermath and Consequences. The aftermath was, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. By the time I got home that evening, my phone had 17 missed calls and 53 text messages. Most of them were from family, friends, and relatives, expressing their shock and disgust at what I'd done. A few were from Sarah's friends, calling me every name in the book. One was from our mother. How could you do this to your sister? How could you be so cruel? None of them were from Sarah. I didn't go to work the next day, or the day after that. News travels fast in a small town, and the story of Sarah Mitchell's ruined wedding was apparently more entertaining than the usual gossip about who was sleeping with whom or which business was closing down. My boss called on Wednesday. Emma, I think it might be best if you took some time off, she said carefully. Let things blow over. Time off. Right. Like this was the kind of thing that would just blow over. I spent the week alone in my apartment, ordering takeout and watching Netflix. I thought I'd feel triumphant, victorious. I thought I'd feel satisfied. Instead, I felt empty. The phone calls stopped after a few days. The text messages slowed to a trickle, then stopped altogether. The town moved on to new gossip, new scandals. I was no longer the center of attention. I was just alone. 2 weeks after the wedding, our mother came to see me. I almost didn't answer the door. I knew what was coming. The lecture about family and forgiveness and how disappointed she was in me. The same lecture I'd gotten my whole life whenever I'd failed to live up to her expectations. But I opened the door anyway. She looked older than I remembered, tired, like she'd aged years in the past 2 weeks. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside and let her into my apartment. She looked around, taking in the takeout containers and empty wine bottles, the evidence of my hermit existence. You look terrible, she said. Thanks, Mom. Really what I needed to hear right now. She sat down on my couch without being invited. We need to talk. If you're here to tell me what a horrible person I am, you can save your breath. I've been getting that message loud and clear. That's not why I'm here. I raised an eyebrow. No? I'm here because I need to understand. I need to understand how my daughter could do something so cruel to her own sister. I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling like I was 7 years old again, being called to account for some childhood transgression. You want to understand? I said. Okay, let me help you understand. Do you remember my 8th grade science fair? I asked. She looked confused. What does that have to do with anything? Just answer the question. Do you remember it? Emma, I don't see. Do you remember it? She sighed. No, I don't remember your 8th grade science fair. I won first place, I said. I built a working model of the solar system with LED lights and a motor. I spent 3 months on it. I was so proud of it. That's wonderful, honey, but you didn't come, I continued. You were at Sarah's dance recital instead, her 3rd dance recital that year, because Sarah needed you there, and my science fair wasn't as important as her performance. My mother's face was starting to change, the defensive anger being replaced by something else, something that might have been recognition. "Do you remember my college graduation?" I asked. "Of course I do." "Do you remember the speech you gave at dinner afterward?" She was quiet for a moment. I talked about both of my daughters. You talked about Sarah's upcoming graduation from Princeton, about how proud you were of her grades and her internship. You spent 5 minutes talking about Sarah's accomplishments and about 30 seconds mentioning that I'd graduated. "Emma, at my own graduation dinner, Mom, you spent my graduation dinner talking about Sarah." The room was quiet except for the sound of traffic outside my window. "I never realized," she said finally. "No," I agreed. "You never did." We sat in silence for a while. I could see her processing, remembering, putting pieces together that she'd never bothered to look at before. "I always thought you were fine," she said eventually. "You were so independent, so capable. You never seemed to need the same kind of attention Sarah did." "I needed it," I said quietly. "I just never got it." "So you destroyed your sister's wedding. You humiliated her in front of everyone she cares about. You broke her heart." "Yes," I said, "I did." "And you think that was justified?" I considered the question, really considered it. "I think," I said finally, "that I was tired of being ignored. I was tired of being the dependable one, the practical one, the one who never caused problems. I was tired of watching her get everything while I got nothing." "So you decided to take it away from her." "I decided to level the playing field." My mother shook her head. "That's not leveling the field, Emma. That's burning it down." She wasn't wrong. "How is she?" I asked. "Devastated. She's staying with me. She won't eat, won't sleep. She just sits in her old room, staring at the wall." I felt a twist in my stomach. Guilt, maybe, or regret, or just the delayed realization of what I'd actually done. And David? Gone. His family convinced him to call off the engagement. They said they couldn't risk being associated with our family's instability. Perfect David, gone. The perfect life, shattered. The perfect future, destroyed. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt sick. "She loved him," I said. "Yes, she did. And now she's lost him because of me." "Yes." My mother stood up to leave. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this, Emma. I don't know if Sarah ever will, but I need you to know something." "What?" "You were wrong. About being ignored, about being invisible. I saw you. I've always seen you. I took you for granted. I thought you were strong enough to handle being overlooked. I thought Sarah needed more because she seemed more fragile." "She was never fragile, Mom. She was perfect. There's a difference. No one's perfect, Emma. Not even Sarah. Could have fooled me." After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, thinking about what she'd said, about being seen versus being acknowledged, about being strong versus being taken for granted. I thought about Sarah sitting in her childhood bedroom, staring at the wall, her perfect life in ruins. I thought about David, probably relieved to have escaped the drama of our family. I thought about the guests at the wedding, the story they'd tell about the crazy sister who destroyed her own siblings' happiness. 3 days later, I did something I'd never done before. I went to see Sarah. She was exactly where our mother had said she'd be, sitting in her old bedroom, still in her pajamas even though it was 3 in the afternoon. She looked up when I came in, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in Sarah's eyes before. Fear. She was afraid of me. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "I wanted to see how you were doing." "How do you think I'm doing, Emma?" "My wedding is ruined, my fiancé is gone, and everyone in town thinks our family is insane." "How do you think I'm doing?" I sat down on the edge of her bed, the same bed where she'd practiced her acceptance speeches for various awards, where she'd talked on the phone with boys who liked her, where she'd planned her perfect future. "I'm sorry," I said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're sorry? You're sorry?" Yes. You planned this for weeks. You manipulated our father, you lied to me, you destroyed the most important day of my life, and now you're sorry? I was angry, I said. I was so angry, Sarah. I've been angry for years, and I finally just snapped. So you decided to take it out on me. I